Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Capitalist Corner. My name is Mark Pellegrino. I am your host and also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party. And next to me is my co-host and the vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, holding up a Funko doll of Jacob, Michael Leibowitz, also the host of his own show, The Irrational Egoist. Michael, you got any news from the Rational Egoist? Anything we should be looking out for to help grow our brain matter?
Well, I still have the episode about purpose that's up there that everybody should be checking out. And I've got a bunch of interviews coming up dealing with the power of learning from people saying no to you. I've got a history of the Liberty movement coming up with a young member of the Liberty movement who used to work with Fee. And I've also got an interview coming up about Frederick Bastiat. And that has nothing, says nothing about whatever I may have coming up with the great Jim Valiant or the great Andy Bernstein. And yes, I do have a new building. This is the building that I was supposed to have from the beginning. This is actually Independence Hall, and it goes well with my shirt, which is the Declaration of Independence. See, everything works out.
Wow, you are all July 4th out, and we're
on the 7th, yeah.
On the 7th. Way to go. I mean, well, it's July 4th every day for everybody who celebrates liberty.
Although you referenced Bastille Day this morning, and I was impressed. July 14th.
Only as a way of trying to capture some people for Cameo, because I thought there might be some history-minded folks that would be interested in knowing how the French Revolution went so bad. Yes, Lucifer was at the head of the French Revolution, and that's why they screwed it all up and turned it into a world war. So today we have an interesting news day, folks. I want to start off with sort of in the middle of the column of the news, the copious news items you sent me, by the way. Like I woke up to 1 billion articles this morning.
You know what happened to me last night?
You couldn't
sleep. Let me tell you something. No, I could not sleep. Now, I take melatonin every night to sleep. So I took the melatonin, still couldn't fall asleep. I don't know. It must have been 10:30 or so. And I had a screaming headache, couldn't sleep. So I said, okay, I'm going to take 2 hits of some weed and see if that'll put me to sleep. So that's what I went and did. And I don't do that regularly, you know what I mean? But I really was having trouble. So I fell asleep. It was nice. 10:30, I fell asleep. Guess what time I woke up?
11:30.
2:30.
Okay.
Couldn't get back to sleep till 6. But that's when I actually went and laid my head back down. So I tell Diana, I said, did you set your alarm? Because she had to get up for a work thing this morning. And she says, I'm not sure if I set it or not. Can you set yours? So I set mine. Instead of setting it for 9, which was what I wanted to do, I set it for 7:30. And then that was basically it. So I got maybe 4.5 hours sleep. And so if I screw up today, we can either blame my lack of sleep, we can blame maybe the marijuana, we can blame Diana, and screw it, we can blame Mark, because why not?
You can blame me. I don't mind. I take a lot of the shit on social media. I'm sort of used to it. Ian Gilmore says you're probably taking too high a dose of melatonin. 300 micrograms is right. What are you taking? Are you taking 5 milligrams?
Yeah.
I
think that's what it is. How do you know?
Well, how do I know? Because it comes in like 1.9 milligrams, 3 milligrams, 5 milligrams. It's usually something like that. And
so you're like an expert?
Well, no, I'm not an expert. I can't say that I'm an expert, but I've used melatonin in the past, and I found it to be not very good for me. In fact, a certain amount of melatonin will make me dizzy. In a most unfortunate way. So be aware of that. There's other products out there that are better, that use different types of mushrooms and different types of herbs that I think what you would find actually work better than melatonin, and a little bit of melatonin. But
I just go with what it says. I buy the pack. It says, take this, and that's it. Subby says Mike drinks energy and coffee drinks all day. Okay, this is true.
That's
no bullshit. No. And let me tell you this. I've fallen for this so many times where I say, okay, let me stop drinking coffee, and then I will be able to sleep at night. You know what ends up happening? I still don't sleep at night, and then I have nothing to give me energy during the day.
Caffeine withdrawals.
I'm talking a month later. Okay. I'm not talking about the next day.
Are you drinking energy drinks as well?
I love
Yeah,
caffeine because
Yep,
without
yep, yep.
caffeine, I'm not getting
Yes,
through the day.
yes, you can get through the day, by the way. Maybe you should try this product. I'm going to give it to you one time. This is not an endorsement, folks. It's not an endorsement of the Capitalist Party, which, by the way, as the heads of the American Capitalist Party, I want you to know that what we say here is from ourselves. It's our own opinion. It's not necessarily the opinion of the party itself, but it may be, and perhaps we'll make those distinctions for you as time goes on.
Okay, hold
This
on one
is one
second.
of
So,
those things. Hold on. This is one of those things that the American Capitalist Party does not necessarily endorse, but there is a coffee product called Ryze coffee, which you may be interested in trying. It's not coffee. It is mushrooms. And I suggest you give it a shot because it may give you that oomph that you need without the artificial caffeine stimulus to your nervous system. But it could also do other things for your brain chemistry that I think may help to reset you. Also, in the morning, you need to do some things to reset your circadian rhythms. The second you wake up in the morning, go outside if possible.
I've heard that, yeah.
But you haven't done anything about it, have you?
Well, I may, and because my big mouth friend and landlord here wants to dime me out about drinking energy drinks, maybe what I'll do when I get up in the morning, I'll turn the garage on, go outside, and create a scene. The dogs will start barking. Everyone's going to be upset, but hey, maybe that'll be fixed.
Go outside to the front yard. Just stay out there for about 15 minutes. Let your eyes adjust to the sunlight. No glasses, no dark glasses or anything. Just let that happen for a couple of weeks and see if it starts to reset your circadian rhythms.
I have two questions before we get to the stories. Am I to understand then that the American Capitalist Party takes no position on energy drinks, caffeine beverages, or sleep aids?
Mark Pellegrino takes a very strong position against caffeine. Caffeine is a good neurostimulant, so it actually has value, but to do it every single day, you're going to make yourself dependent on it. That's not necessarily good. That's why I say substitute Ryze coffee instead of regular coffee.
That brings me to my next question.
Don't like sport stimulus drinks. I think they have ingredients in them that are bad for your not only your neurological system, but also
this is a lot of speculation.
Also your heart. No.
You had me scared to death about this. Drinking energy drinks. I went and looked it up, and it says this is not something I need to worry about. But I do have to ask you this.
Kira Felix says coffee is great, especially at night. Kira, that may mean that you have ADD, my friend. So
coffee doesn't. I can drink coffee and fall asleep anyway. That's neither here nor there. But this Ryze, I've got all kinds of stuff. But this Ryze thing that you're talking about, I just wonder, is this something that only the jet set Hollywood types can afford, like you and Rosie Ginsburg? Is it one of these expensive drinks?
I'm not a Hollywood jet set type, but no, I don't think it's.
Oh, yeah.
Although Neil Patrick Harris was advertising it, so anything's possible. I loved his advertisement so much, I've been thinking about getting Ryze.
You, Neil Patrick, and Rosie, I can see the three as you're driving around. And you notice up top here, Jim Valiant called you a ginger. He says ginger. And he said ginger and chamomile at night.
Yeah. It's a betrayal. I can't believe my friend, my partner in crime has abandoned me when I needed you most. Look, let's get to these news items. Well, enough about your poor sleep habits.
I was accused of one more thing. I was accused the other day of being on the spectrum. So we're just going to throw that in.
Are you on
No, I don't. I don't have frequent headaches, Mente Minha, occasionally.
Are you on the spectrum?
Who the hell knows? I don't know. I've never been tested for that.
I wonder how one tests for that, actually. It'd be interesting to find out if you're on the spectrum.
Why would that interest you?
Why wouldn't it?
Fair enough.
So I want to talk first about something that came in the middle of the copious news cycle that you sent me. And this is about Elon Musk's querying about starting a third party. Now, recently he came out online. He took big polls online about whether or not people were sick of the duopoly and whether or not there should be a third party alternative. And of course, somewhere in the neighborhood of 65 to 70% of the respondents said, yes, there should be a third party. Now, what kills me about this, Michael, is whenever you start talking third party to people, you get all the establishment guys and all the people on the fringes saying, don't do it. Don't do it. They're just spoilers. We had a third party when Clinton was up for election against Bush. And what happened? We got Clinton in office over Bush, and Clinton's, aside from some of the scandal-ridden personal scandals in his administration, actually turned out to be one of the better presidents because he was countered by Newt Gingrich and the legislative power of Newt Gingrich and what the Republicans called the Republican Revolution actually shackled President Clinton's agenda, and he had enough sense to actually go along with it, and it wound up doing some fairly decent things for America. But people always say third parties don't work. And yet the overwhelming majority of people are sick of the two-party system and want a third party. And my response to them is, well, why don't you ever vote your conscience? Why don't you ever vote what you rationally think is better, as opposed to attempting to keep parties in power? If everybody who said what you say were to vote their conscience, the establishment would no longer be the establishment. So now we have the richest guy in the world who wants to start a new party that he's going to call the American Party. Now, this is a person who can actually make some headway with a third party. This is why I've been harassing him on social media in an attempt to turn his face from the American Party, which we're going to talk about some of the characteristics of the party in a moment, and towards the more principled capitalist party, hoping that he might see one of my tweets in his billions and billions of follower feed. I doubt it, but if the capitalist digital army gets on it, we have 120 to 150 people tweeting and retweeting, maybe he will start to see the smoke signals and see that the American Party isn't necessarily the way to go. One of the main reasons I say it isn't necessarily the place to go comes from a tweet from Tyler Palmer. At the very, very end of it, he says, with respect to the American Party's policies, centrist party policies everywhere else. So you have reduced the debt, which is fine. Responsible spending only. Okay, we don't know what that means. It doesn't. There's no concept necessitating the protection of individual rights. So we're assuming welfare statism will continue as usual, but the spending will be quote unquote responsible by somebody's metric we don't know. Modernize military with AI robotics. Okay, pro-tech accelerates to win in AI, which probably means tech subsidies, which is right up his alley. That's something we couldn't agree with. Less regulation across the board, but especially energy. How about no regulation and allow regulatory agencies to become private organizations, information orgs that inform consumers so that consumers can make informed decisions about what they buy. Free speech, well, that's good. Thank God they like the First Amendment. Pro-natalists. Now, this is another snag in the road for me.
It's weird, is what it is. It's weird.
Strange, but we're assuming it's because he's got like 175 kids and he wants to populate the earth with Elon Musk types everywhere. And so pro-natalist, maybe this is a throwback to Handmaid's Tale. Pregnant women are something they want to see. I want to see women who have.
What did you just say? The what tale?
The Handmaid's Tale.
It's just handmade. Just a Handmaid's Tale.
Handmaid's Tale, whatever. I read it. Did you read it?
The Handmaid's Tale? No, I didn't, but I know what it's called.
Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
Did you read it?
Yeah.
Okay,
no, I've seen the movie.
Okay, so you saw the movie. I read the book. I think that gives me the opportunity to have a little verbal faux pas. So let me have the verbal faux pas. The Handmaid's Tale. I guess he wants women pregnant, and bodily autonomy doesn't necessarily mean anything to him. So pro-natalist is strange. It should be pro-choice in every respect, and centrist policies everywhere else. Now, centrist policies. To me, that just means attempting to marry bad and good together and getting more of the same bullshit. So it seems to me that the American Party, if I'm not mistaken, Michael, you can help me with this, will probably wind up in the same kind of corrupt, debt-ridden hole that the two establishment parties are in right now. What say you to that?
I think it sounds maybe like the Reform Party. First of all, let me just, as an aside, I really don't like children. I don't know. Like, people love kids. I'm not one of those people. I find them to be obnoxious.
I don't like dogs. You don't admit that in public.
No, I love dogs. Children, they need constant attention, and they're loud, and it's too much for me. Maybe it's because I'm on the spectrum. Either way, Ariana says pro-natalist policies include things like tax incentives for those with kids. And
all of
I'm
this
pretty
stuff that
sure she's right.
Trump is trying to do this
Right.
now with a sort of universal basic income for people who have children.
Yes.
It's absurd.
So my take on Elon is I don't think he's a principled guy. To be honest, I mean, I've retweeted the stuff that you're talking about, reaching out to him. I suppose it's worth a shot. He is a billionaire, but I wouldn't have much hope for it, even if he were to see it. First of all, I think he's far too self-centered for that. I don't think he could join somebody else's thing. He needs to have his own thing. That's the first thing. But he's also not a principled guy, not even close. I mean, this is the guy who endorsed Trump after Trump had said, Elon was on his knees begging for subsidies. Then he endorsed him. After endorsing him, he's saying Trump's on the Epstein client list. Well, what, you just found that out? Or are you just lying? I don't know. So I just don't think he's a very principled person. I don't think this party he's starting is going to go anywhere, largely for the reason you just said. He's going to be promising all the same things that Republicans promise. So,
well, like Ross Perot, the thing is, one of the few third parties to make a decent showing in an election was Ross Perot, and partly because he was a billionaire, and he had the resources to be able to fund the party. What he wound up doing was siphoning 19% of the votes away from, probably from Bush. And that's why people fear these third parties, because they think it puts the greater of two evils in power as opposed to the lesser of two evils. I tend to agree with Ariana. I was just glad you highlighted that. Oh, he's persona.
Oh, no, that's wrong one.
Yeah, I was thinking of he's not a total lost cause if he can listen to reason. Do you think he's open to reason? There are times when he does seem open to reason.
I have seen zero evidence that he's open to reason. If somebody occasionally says something reasonable or says something correct, that doesn't necessarily mean they're open to reason. I mean, everybody on the planet, if you're surviving as an adult, uses reason at times, right? Otherwise, you would die. You drink cyanide instead of water. You make all kinds of errors that would lead to death. So everybody's open to reason. But the fact is, but when you're not principled about it, you have no way of knowing when that person's going to be right or when that person's going to be wrong. Somebody here says Elon works on convenience. I think that's correct. That's the evidence that I've seen. He goes into this Doge thing. He says, we're going to cut 3 trillion. It ends up not even close to that. He doesn't come out and then, say, damn, this is much harder than I thought or any of that sort of thing. He just says, we were wrong about some things and moves on. Like I said,
But do you think at the time he was just trying to maintain solidarity with Trump?
Well, I don't. This is the inherent problem when someone lacks principle. You don't know what they're doing. You don't know. You have no clue what's going on. I tend to think he's and this is just a judgment based on what I've seen. Obviously, I don't know the man. He seems to just be an eccentric billionaire that's probably got some sort of personality disorder. And Howard Hughes was kind of wacky and he was very rich, but I just don't see this reasonable side of him. I know there's people out there who have said, well, he's the closest thing we have to Hank Rearden. I just don't see it, and I haven't seen it. Now, I am open to reason, so if there's evidence to the contrary, I'm willing to see it.
Yeah, if anybody can please show me evidence that he is anything like Hank Rearden, I would love to see it. Now, Kat Sterling points out something very important. Y'all are going to give her a headache with this viewer deficit. So please remember to like and subscribe to this show, and remember to share it on YouTube, please. Share it from YouTube to other platforms. However, this is boomer speak for everybody. So I know you know what I'm talking about. It's important. The algorithm likes this kind of stuff, and it's important that these messages that talk about freedom from a principled perspective, from an ethically grounded perspective, get out there in the world. Now, of course, Trump, in typical Trump fashion, insinuated that, the federal government can save a lot. Is that coffee that you're drinking right now?
Water.
Okay, good. You need to be hydrated. So
yeah.
is insinuated in typical Trump fashion. You know, we could save a lot more money if we just stopped giving Elon Musk government subsidies. And he said this, of course, on the heels of Elon's announcement that he's starting a third party. And this seems to be now more typical of Trump day by day. Him using the office of the presidency. Now, the presidency is a famous office because it's considered a bully pulpit. The president can use the office in order to express perspectives that can put pressure on people. But I haven't really seen in my lifetime this level of overt use of the office of the presidency and the power of the presidency to leverage people to do what he wants. I mean, we're seeing it all across the board, where he's denying universities subsidies, not because he's principled and not because he's against private universities receiving government subsidies, but because he wants them to do what he wants them to do. Pursuing news organizations that don't publish the way he likes the news in such a fashion that he wants it to be published. He's won 2 lawsuits against them. I think both for around 16 million each. And using the FCC as a means of lording his power over them so that they eventually have to settle and conform to what he wants. None of these are principled oppositions, and the same threat goes out to Elon Musk, who's now shown that he's not immune to Trump's desire to throw his power all over the place. If he chooses to make this third-party option, it's highly possible that the subsidies from the United States government could dry up. I mean, what do you think of that use of the presidential power?
I'm with you. From the advent of the Trump phenomenon in politics, I've been told, well, all politicians lie. All politicians abuse their power. And I agree with that. The way I like to describe it, Mark, is Trump to me is like a caricature of your average politician. You know, you ever go to you see a caricaturist and everything is exaggerated, about the person that they draw. And I think that Trump takes all the worst things that we know about politicians and amplifies them. And I think it's included in what you're talking about with abusing the office to threaten his enemies and all that. Meanwhile, they constantly accuse, everybody else is doing it. But I mean, and they do. I just think with Trump, it's to a greater degree. It's, of course, wrong when anybody else does it. And it's just as wrong when Trump does it. I just think he does it more. It reminds me of Jim Valiant when we were talking about Trump breaking the law when he had all the classified documents and refused to turn them over. And people say, well, what about Hillary? Hillary had the emails. And Jim says, yeah, she should have been prosecuted too. And the thing is, just because they didn't prosecute one guilty person doesn't then mean that we should let every guilty person go free.
Well, they also didn't prosecute Biden, and they should have prosecuted him.
Well, they said he was the guy investigated him. Said he was, whatever, a little loopy. But yeah, sure.
It would be hard to get a conviction because the jury would consider him a daughter.
Yeah,
man.
But I'm all for it. If people are breaking the law, then prosecute them. But the defense of Trump that, well, other politicians do it too is not a defense. Even if, which I don't think is accurate, they all do it just as much as he does. That's still not a defense of him. Just like it wouldn't have been a defense of Biden to say, well, look what Trump did. When Biden drives up the debt and someone says, yeah, Trump drove it up too, so freaking what?
Yeah, right? That's true whataboutism. That's true whataboutism.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. Well, yeah, 2 wrongs don't make a right, folks. And pointing out that the other side does it doesn't mean that, well, now your side has the opportunity that since it's in power to do exactly what the corrupt side was doing.
Mark, one of the things I'm so happy about in my political evolution is that I broke free from the defend my side thing. Because when I first got involved, I was aligned with the Republicans. And as such, I listened to Republican sources, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, and I would just basically repeat what they were saying. I thought that they were telling the truth, and so this is what's happening. And, I eventually broke myself from that. I did continue to support or root for the Republicans because I thought that the Democrats were just that bad. And I still do think they're just that bad. I just think that the Republicans now are really competing for the which is worst side. But that is a poison to have that where you just defend the side that you happen to be on. And it's one of the most liberating things to be able to just look at all of them and see it for what they are. Maybe we'll get to that later if we get to that government article I sent you, the unicorn governance.
So that leads me to something interesting, and it's a bit of a digression, but I've been curious as to when you start your journey on objectivism. Of course, you look at the political landscape, and there's not really anything out there that represents a fully capitalistic point of view, a fully human sovereign point of view, and yet you tend to gravitate towards conservatism at first. I know I did that at first. The good news was it exposed me to very good conservative thinkers like Walter Williams and Thomas Sowell, who, even though they're embraced by the Republicans, are actually more independent, the Charles Krauthammers of the world. And when I read their editorials, I was amazed at how intelligent and insightful they were and how grounded their perspective was in reality. Of course, that all goes to hell when they start talking religion, but for the most part, I found the conservative movement, this is in the 90s, in the early 90s, to be grounded in reality, whereas I found the left, the political left, and Democrats at the time, who were much more moderate than they are today, to be out in left field. Like none of their concepts touched grass at all. And you think that's what attracts objectivists initially to conservatism? Because then eventually, like you, I grew out of it and decided this was not the right place for me to be either.
I actually went, and my journey was a little different. There's, of course, the famous book, it usually begins with Ayn Rand, but with me, it didn't. With me, I started conservative, migrated to libertarianism because the conservatives were so inconsistent. I actually had an argument, well, not an argument, but a disagreement in letters with William F. Buckley Jr. about the inconsistency of conservatives. And so I went to libertarianism, and from reading libertarian literature, I found Ayn Rand. But yeah, I think there might be in us a natural inclination to want to participate, right? To want to root for something. It's like, you ever watch a football game or a boxing match and you don't know who any of the people are and you just pick one to root for? I think that we sort of naturally want
I never pick one arbitrarily. I just want you to know that.
Okay, but you pick one.
I do, and it usually tends to be, it's either the guy whose skill I really admire, or it's the underdog, the total underdog, and
okay.
Especially if the other guy's acting with a lot of.
But you do pick one, and that's kind of my point. So when you get involved in politics, and you especially want to make a difference, and you see, okay, nobody's perfect, and I think that's true. So you go for the side that appears to be the best. And the Republicans, at least, were talking the rhetoric of capitalism.
Especially during.
Yes, we need to cut regulations. We need to cut taxes. We need to,
do away with the Department of Education.
Go by the Constitution. We need to have judges that are going to strictly interpret, not legislate from the bench. And all that's great. Get rid of the welfare state, whatever. The problem is when they actually get into office, that goes away. And we used to have, in the 2016 election, in the primary, there were actually two candidates that I thought at the time. Now, in hindsight, I've changed my mind about Ted Cruz. But nonetheless, at the time, it appeared you had a principled constitutional conservative in Ted Cruz and a libertarian Republican in Rand Paul. Rand Paul went absolutely nowhere. And he's the one guy that I think actually would have worked to cut the debt because he's going against Trump now and, goes against his own party. He went nowhere,
I feel like after Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, he's become a much larger and more influential figure now that he's out of politics.
No, not Ron. Rand, I'm talking about. Rand
sorry.
Paul. But Ron, you're right. But in Cruz, they didn't want him. I remember in Indiana, get out of here, politician. Indiana does not want you. So, you get Trump, an unprincipled demagogue who will fight vehemently against the people you don't like. He'll call them names. He'll take them on. But policy wise, you get nothing, and then you just end up where I am now, totally disillusioned. Don't like any of them. And let's get the American Capitalist Party going, which, by the way, people can find at americancapitalistparty.org. And that I can confidently say, to go to our website is an official position of the American Capitalist Party.
Indeed, and you should like and subscribe to this channel if you like our content. Even if you don't, the algorithm likes when you respond. So respond any old way you can. Ariana has confessed that she is registered Republican at one time. I have to say I never registered Republican. I was a registered Democrat because I registered when I was 18 years of age. And I just kept that registration, believe it or not, until about 10 years ago when I just decided to go decline to state. So that is my party affiliation as the world knows it. Until and unless we get an American Capitalist Party on a person on the ballot, then I can declare myself as an American Capitalist Party member. Now, look, you sent me something from ABC News, and I was kind of curious as to why you sent it to me, because apparently the Epstein Files were one of the promises that Trump made was to release all of the Epstein Files in the interests of total transparency. But there's been a bit of a glitch. For some reason, not all of these files are being held or being pushed out there for public consumption. And apparently, they're saying there was no client list. So this guy had a bunch of wealthy people in the top tiers of the elites of our society going over to his pedophilic island and experiencing sexual ecstasy at the behest of these of Epstein and his stable of underage kids. And yet this guy has no records of the people who apparently exploited these poor young women. And there's a bit of suspicion surrounding the fact that this list that everybody thought existed does not exist, and a bit of suspicion around the fact that not all the information is being released, as Kash Patel and the president said was supposed to happen relatively immediately. So it's got the conspiracy theorists thinking, what is somebody trying to hide? And since Elon Musk's famous tweet where he said one of the reasons that these files aren't being released is because Donald Trump's name is on it, it's got everybody buzzing, and particularly ABC News. So, but why did you send this to me? Because Epstein is sort of, even though commies like to call me, they love to pin every Hollywood actor with either being an Epstein pedophile or a P. Diddy party goer. And that's the insult that they like to throw at me. I never knew Epstein. I never went to his island or one of his parties. I don't know P. Diddy and don't care to know P. Diddy or go to any of his parties. And so I could care less about anything related to Jeffrey Epstein. So why did you send this to me? To irritate me?
Yes. No, I sent it to you because it was all over social media. So I know it was a big story because the politicians have been promising they're going to release this, and because the conspiracy theorists are up in arms. I got to tell you, I was doubtful that there ever was this list. I didn't know much about the case. I saw it on the news when I was in prison. One thing I always thought was ridiculous is the people claiming there's no way he could have killed himself. Like, that was just people that say that. I mean, I get it. You don't know. They really just have zero clue how prisons operate. The COs, correctional officers, they do tours. So the one of the prisons that I was in, they put buttons by the door, electronic buttons that they have to press to make sure that they're actually doing the tour. Right. But they just walk by and press the button. They don't actually look in the cell to see what's going on. I've seen countless officers asleep at the desk. That's not something rare. Things in prison are constantly broken. I've been in blocks where the showers were broken for who knows how long. Toilets break and you got to end up going to other blocks to use them. So the fact that somebody could kill himself without the guards noticing or the camera being broken, none of that shocks me. Now, could he have killed himself? Sure, but you better come with better arguments than that. And then people say, why would a billionaire kill himself? Because you have no idea what initially being locked in that cage feels like when you're looking down the barrel of a significant sentence. It feels hopeless. Like you can't just go make a call. You can't go take a shower. You can't do anything. And in your mind, when you're fresh from the street, that is so alien, especially to somebody like that. It doesn't surprise me at all that he would kill himself. Like none of that seems surprising. So then there was all this hubbub about this list. So I always just assumed, okay, he was arrested for trafficking girls to other people. That's because that's what I've always heard. So then this morning, when this came out that there's no list, there's no evidence, nothing, I said, let me Google this and see. And it turns out he was never charged with trafficking girls to other people. He was charged with procuring girls for himself. And Ghislaine Maxwell was charged with procuring girls for him. Now, there were rumors and there's civil suits claiming otherwise, but that has nothing to do with the criminal indictments. So I wouldn't assume that there's this magic list. I think, now there could be, I certainly wouldn't put it beyond the government to hide the list if there were such a list, but I also wouldn't put it, above these people to, fan the flames of the idea that there's this list to get their base all wound up and get themselves elected. I mean, how many people supported Kash Patel? Oh yeah, he's going to release the Epstein list, and Trump, he's going to do it. We're going to find out about Kennedy. We're going to find out about this.
Well, we also thought he was going to cut the FBI down to size, but apparently wants $100 billion more.
Yeah. So, so when were they lying? Were they lying then or are they lying now? Hell if I know. But I just think that this always happens. The thing that makes me suspicious is this is what always happens with conspiracy theorists. It does not matter what evidence materializes. It's all taken as evidence of the conspiracy. So now, instead of saying, before they said they trusted Trump, they trust Kash Patel, right? Now it comes out that this stuff doesn't exist. So they don't say, okay, I trusted him. They'll tell the truth. What they do is say, oh, no. Like I saw on X this morning, Israel got to Trump. Because you always got to throw in the Jews with a good conspiracy theorist.
The Jews are the puppet masters of the universe.
Right. So
1% of the population.
But ultimately, Mark, the reason that this stuff intrigues me is because of the epistemology of it. What's his name? Clint Russell posted this morning, this 100% confirms what we think about the government. He can't prove that. He's just saying it. Because he's either a grifter, which I tend to think, or his epistemology is just garbage, right? Like you just draw conclusions that you have no business drawing. So
it's crazy. Americans are sort of schizophrenic about the nature of government. And folks, before I go on to talk about this, remember to hit the like and subscribe button, please. And remember to share this with all your friends. The algorithm likes it.
Where do they share from, Mark?
YouTube. Please share from YouTube. Thank you very much. Did I get that right?
Yes. So all your social media posts, please.
All your social media posts. Thank you very much. So people are a little schizophrenic when it comes to government. They on the one hand, they understand from personal experience that it's utterly and totally incompetent. And on the other hand, it's omniscient and omnipotent. And so you see somebody as incompetent as a George Bush, who can barely tie his shoes in the morning, and yet somehow he was able to pull together a conspiracy that brought down the Twin Towers. It wasn't 19 insane Islamicist fanatics. It was the United States government in cahoots with the Mossad. Now, I think it's because, you know why I think this sort of strange dichotomy exists? It's because people, I think, would feel very afraid if they understood that unhinged human beings do lots of damage, right? So they have to pretend like there's some element of control behind it, like there's some element of consciousness, conscious puppet masters pulling the strings from atop. But when you look at, say, every president that has been assassinated, from McKinley, Garfield, Lincoln, and the attempted Kennedy and the attempted assassination of Ronald Reagan. Who did it? Crazy people. Crazy people.
That's what they want you to think.
Ineffectual people.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's a form of protectiveness, is a form of evading the reality that, there's just, we have the most powerful military in the world, but yet some crazy son of a bitch can get through and bollocks up the whole works. Ariana, you have up here, says, we also have a lot of examples of government lying. This is true. And this also contributes to the mass neurosis that people who still want to feel like there's a puppet master behind the scenes pulling the strings. I think it gives them a measure of control, just like feeling there's a God out there, an old man in the sky.
You hit it, Mark. You hit it. And let me tell you, I think that there's a significant amount of people that can't fathom, for instance, what Friedrich Hayek called the spontaneous order in economics. They can't fathom that things just happen. It's, the primitives thought it's raining out, God's happy with us. He wants to water our crops. It's thundering. God's angry, whatever. There's always has to be a consciousness directing it. And it's similar with this. And it doesn't mean that these people never conspire. Of course, people conspire all the time, but the level of conspiracies that they're talking about, the odds of people keeping this secret, these very scummy people that we know are so scummy, but yet they're all going to be loyal to one another and keep these enormous conspiracies like this Jeffrey Epstein thing. And now people might say, well, but they'll get killed. That's the thing, is you can always come up with a reason to further the conspiracy. I argue it's crazy to me to be out here and see the level to which conspiracies have come, to light where people believe them, because in prison, they're very popular because the prisoner likes to look at the world as if it's corrupt, because then it vindicates him as not being so bad. Right. So it's all out there. Yes. The Tuskegee syphilis experiment, anyone? Yes. And we know about it. That's kind of the point.
Yes. Real conspiracies are super hard to hide. Once more than one person is privy to something, guess what? They can't keep secrets.
No. And yes, it took a long time. It took, I think it took 25 or 30 years to come out, but there wasn't social media at the time. It wasn't the same dynamic, and it still came out within a very not a very big span. And it was also limited to Tuskegee, and it was nothing approaching something like 9/11. Right? The Tuskegee experiments, there's misinformation out there about it, that the government was actually infecting people with syphilis to test them, but that's actually not what happened. What happened was people contracted syphilis, and the government didn't treat them because they wanted to see the effects of what would happen if they weren't treated. That's horrible. Don't get me wrong.
One more reason not to let the government control your health care or steal your moral agency in any health crisis. I have to say, Kat Sterling says something true. Who can we believe? The American Capitalist Party. That's right. You can believe the American Capitalist Party because we stand on integrity and principle. We stand on the truth because we understand how important it is for a human being to be truthful. It's epistemically healthy to be honest. All right. And so we try to bring those virtues into the political party because we understand that seeing reality for what it is and responding to reality for what it is a much healthier place to be than the massive evasions that we're getting from both of the other parties. So make sure you like and subscribe to this station. We need to spread the capitalist word throughout the world. And also remember to share it from your YouTube. You also sent me a very troubling. Are we done with Jeffrey Epstein? Is that all we have to say about that?
I hope we're done with Jeffrey Epstein.
I hope we are, but I have a feeling we're not because there's a lot of television show out there that this makes good television for, right? Because for many people, it's an open-ended book, and it's a narrative they can constantly go back to and exploit because there's so many unknowns for people. It's hard for them to know that there's just a creepy guy who did creepy things, and that's about it. And it really ends with that. But people aren't satisfied with that. And hey, it'll make a few Netflix specials and a few producers rich. What did you want to say before I move on to the next?
I was just going to laugh. Creepy guys do creepy things.
They do. Right? That's what.
And good guys
do good things.
Get dolls made after them.
That's true. That's true. Yes, good guys do get dolls made out. Not all good guys, I have to say.
No. You have to be a very rich and famous. You have to live the jet set lifestyle. You have to be able to afford the good coffee that isn't actually coffee. You have to be able to fly around with Ryze Ginsburg all around the world. But yes,
me and Ryze do not fly together. We don't fly together.
No, because you each get your own jet.
Yeah, right.
But you're still flying around.
I actually have flown privately a few times, and it's actually marvelous. And I don't apologize for it.
Ariana, if I had a Mark hair doll, it would be red hair. Okay, go to the next story.
But you're calling me a ginger. Now it's sticking with our audience. It's going to stick with the fandom pretty soon, as well as James Pellegrino. That's going to stick. Look, you sent me this thing from Tucker Carlson. Decided to interview the Iranian President Mahmoud Pezeshkian. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that name right, and I don't care because I don't care to honor him by pronouncing his name right. Now, I was only able to listen to 2 questions from Tucker. And I'm even forgetting what they are at the moment. But I know that the first question he asked, the answer was so patently absurd from the president, and received absolutely no pushback from Tucker Carlson. Then he proceeded to ask him a question about the nuclear program, which the answer from the president was also patently absurd, provably false, and still received no pushback from Tucker Carlson. So I'm wondering why in the F did Tucker Carlson bring this guy on his show? Was it just clickbait? Has he just become a click whore?
I think so. I had some time. I listened to the whole thing, and he would ask one question. He didn't push back. There was no, contending with anything that was said. And he didn't ask the Iranian president about the hostages in 1979. He didn't ask the president about the bombing in Beirut. He did not ask the president about the funding of Hamas, about the funding of Hezbollah, about the calls for the obliteration of Israel. He didn't ask him about the role of Islam in the conflicts. He didn't ask him any of that. He did not give him any pushback. The president actually said, in answer to the question about the calls for death to America, he said, no, they're not referring to the death of the American people or to the death of the country. They're talking about a death to crimes. And there was no pushback to that. What? Now, this is the same Tucker Carlson who a few weeks ago went ballistic on Ted Cruz, had no problem pushing back on Ted Cruz for his support of Israel. But yet the president of Iran gets zero pushback. Meanwhile, if you go through the comments on Tucker's station, he's the best journalist of our time. He's the only true journalist left. Nobody does this anymore. He's getting us the voice of other people, of our enemies. And they'll point to real journalists who interviewed, Fidel Castro, whatever. Yes, but they challenged them. They didn't just give them a welcome mat and kiss their asses. That's what Tucker does.
He does. And the first question had to do with, Iran's attitude towards the international stage. And Iran, the president said something like, Iran is a peaceful country. We were attacked. We didn't deserve any of this. We didn't do anything to incite this kind of violence from Israel and the United States. And yeah, his next question was Hezbollah. Wasn't Hezbollah?
No, didn't ask anything about Hezbollah, Hamas, nothing.
Houthis, none of these state proxies of yours that are running around the Middle East, murdering
Nothing,
Americans.
nothing about the fatwa on Salman Rushdie. He
Nothing
did
about.
ask about the fatwas on Trump, which was real. Oh well, and then he asked him about sleeper cells in America, and he said, no, no, no. The Iranian people are very peaceful people. That's it. So
Okay. Yeah. Well, I have no doubt that there are a number of Iranian people who are in fact peaceful and want a liberalized secular government there, because I've seen the movement, which I don't see anything really similar in Gaza or in the West Bank. So I can believe in some respect that he's telling the truth. He's just not telling the truth about the administration, which is entirely bellicose. Now, I wanted to get to something sort of positive here, because this I love Jeffrey Tucker, by the way. I know you like Jeffrey Tucker too, but you have issues with Jeffrey.
yeah, I like him, but I get aggravated with some of his posts. That's the best way to put it.
So is he the founder of the Brownstone Institute, or is he just a fellow at the Brownstone
I
Institute?
believe he's the founder of the Brownstone Institute.
So this is sort of a libertarian-esque think tank, although sometimes he breaks ranks with libertarians and he says really super intelligent things. He was one of the guys. I read his editorials every week if I can in the Epoch Times. He was the one who talked about how worthless debates were, and you really, really see that when you're in blood sport debates with people, how the issue really isn't about solving problems or resolving issues or getting to the truth. It's about appealing to your fan base, and that's it. Well, he wrote an article entitled "How to Find Joy in an Unfree World." I think you should post that if you haven't already, Michael, because it refers to a book that was written around the Gilded Age, and the book is called "The Joys of Living" by Orison Swett Marden, and the book, of course, came about in an age that has been demonized by the left as the age of greed. The Gilded Age itself, a phrase that I think Mark Twain came up with, implied, incredible wealth disparities, terrible impoverishment, like really horrible things. If you read Upton Sinclair's The Jungle, Upton Sinclair being one of the worst human beings on the planet by reputation, you will see what he thought of the American dream. Same with Theodore Dreiser. You read these anti-American dream guys. That's what we read in high school coming up, and that was our impression of the Industrial Revolution in America. It was only later that I discovered, getting out of poverty is a dirty business. It's not easy. And human beings don't know everything, right? So they have to evolve into better conditions, and they have to build up capital in order to make conditions better for people. And that's sort of what was going on in the 19th century. But when there was no taxation and innovation was pretty much free, people, the everyday average Joe, looked up to these entrepreneurs and inventors. They admired them, as opposed to now, where you get people like Mondami in New York saying billionaires shouldn't exist. We have to tax people and redistribute their income. Now we live in an age of envy. At the time, we lived in an age of admiration and hero worship, where these people were looked to as examples of how to be in the world and how to successfully act in the world. And of course, things were no different in that time. They were poor, of course, in that time, in the respect that life puts obstacles in your way, and you have choices with respect to how you respond to those obstacles. And this book provides some very interesting insights as to the attitudes that you should have towards life. Now, I know there's a few people who are listening today who suffer from tremendous obstacles in their life, many of them physical and extremely hard to overcome. I understand and relate to you guys who are suffering from that. And if you get this book, I think it'll give you a little bit of the spiritual strength to persevere, because it's not about being successful by someone else's metric, but by your own. And finding happiness and joy in everything that you do. It's about an attitude of optimism in facing the problems that you have in life and knowing that you have the power to overcome them. And Mike, I want to get your opinions about all this before I slide down to some of the great little quotes that I think everybody should.
This article I originally read when it first came out, which I think was 2014, but I might be wrong. It was in the Freeman Ideas on Liberty magazine. in the article, I saved it. I think I still have the hard copies somewhere downstairs, because this article got me through a lot of hard times. Now, there's an interesting story. I may have told it on this show before, but I'll tell it again. I had read this article and I absolutely loved it. In the meantime, and as Scott says that Jeffrey was a champion on COVID, Jeffrey was a regular guest on the same talk show that I was a regular guest on, the Todd Feinberg show. For years, I didn't know that it was the same guy that I was listening to on the radio and that read the article. And finally, I found out, and I told Todd, I said, Todd, man, you got to tell this guy what an impact this had on me. And then when I got out, I actually had a chance to interview him, and I told him, what a large influence. I highly recommend the article. It's really, really great, and you're going to find out from Mark some great quotes. I posted it to Facebook and I posted it to X.
Yeah, you should really read this book if you can. I'm going to order it for sure, and it's going in my huge queue, which is becoming ridiculous. I simply can't read fast enough to get these books off my floor. Towers of books everywhere. You
have my book that you haven't read yet.
That is not a tower of a book. It is.
No, that's my point. It's very easy to get through. Meanwhile, you're too busy sipping your mushroom tea.
I haven't got mushroom tea. I need a physical copy of that book. Listen, I love this. So one of man's greatest passions is that of achievement, the passion for doing things, the ambition to accomplishment. I remember living next door to one of my friends, who's still a friend to this day. He's 80 years old. He suffered a lot of problems in his life. But one thing I noticed about him was that he had neither purpose nor love in his life. And I think those are the two most important things for you to have in your life. I say you need a purpose. He's on disability and SSI, but he is physically capable of working. And even if he has to volunteer somewhere for a couple of hours a day, I said, that is good for your soul. You're sad now because you feel no purpose, no sense of purpose. Do not flatter yourself. You can be really happy unless you're useful. Happiness and usefulness are born twins. To separate them is fatal. I love that thought. It reminds me of Cider House Rules. I don't know if you ever read the book, The Cider House Rules.
Seen the movie.
Yeah, well, the book is better, of course. But one thing that the doctor teaches, the kid is, be of use. And now that we may balk at that a little bit as objectivists, in the sense that, that seems like it's oriented towards service to others. Well, no, it just means that, be of use. You can also be of use to yourself. Be a practical instrument in your own life. Make use of your environment in a way that helps you to prosper and become better. That's a proactive way of looking at the world. And that does something to you dispositionally, folks. If you look at the world as if it's all against you, like the communists do, the classes are against you. You're determined by your social set. There's no real way out of it except to throw a spaz attack with guns and kill a bunch of people and then take over the levers of power. You're going to be chronically unhappy. But if you understand that the world does present obstacles to you, it does offer resistance to you, but your optimism and joy in overcoming the obstacles to the best of your ability will grow your self-esteem, you will be not chronically unhappy, but chronically happy. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be like this all the time. It just means that you're going to have a general state of contentment and self-awareness and peace that other people, spend trillions of dollars on going to gurus in India in an attempt to get, but you can achieve it right here and now. The greatest conqueror of age is a cheerful, hopeful, loving spirit. I love that concept. That kind of optimism, folks, is what makes you stay young. Be the eternal child. And I don't mean that emotionally or mentally, but like a kid, be curious all the time, be open to new information, argue to find the truth, and be vigorous about that, and cheerful and happy that you are here, blessed that you are here. And that will do so much to add to your longevity as a human being. Now, I believe, Michael, you have the capitalist thought for the day.
I do. I want to just address Ian Gilmore. Yeah, when you say that Jeffrey Tucker was and is terrible about COVID, so many lies repeated, what I was referring specifically when I agreed with Scott was, I just want to make clear that you understand my position, he was good about lockdowns and mandates and about some of the censorship stuff. Not that he's right about what he says about the disease or vaccines or any of that stuff. But so I just wanted to clarify that. let me get this off of the screen here, and then we can. I've been tricked into giving the capitalist thought of the day, folks.
Tricked.
Yes, tricked.
Why tricked? Are you complaining? Do you need me to do it for you?
No, I can. I'll handle this. I think I can handle this.
Well, don't look so. I mean, you look like you're about to spit.
Independence Hall.
Okay,
that's it. Okay,
there you go.
So, the article that Mark just referenced is a very optimistic article, and ultimately, I think there is cause for optimism about the future, even in the current state of affairs where, we have growing government infringements on our freedoms. We still are relatively free, and we certainly are free enough to think our own thoughts, to have the conversations that we want to have, like this one. And that's powerful because we can still shape our own characters and in many ways shape the results that we get in this world. And one of those results that we want is to live in a free society. And because we do still have the elements of freedom that we do, we are able to push for it, argue for it, make the case for it. So go out there, do that, make the case for a free society. Be cheerful when you do it. Be happy. Understand that life is probably good, even though there may be bad times. And one of the ways you can promote capitalism is by liking, sharing, and subscribing to this show, and by going to AmericanCapitalistParty.org.
Great words, folks. We will see you here tomorrow, same bat time, same bat place, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. Remember, in the meantime, if you want to be happy, that means you have to check your premises all the time. So never forget to check your premises, and we'll see you here tomorrow. Peace.